Sure, thanks. So I'm Christine McGowan. I'm with the Vermont Sustainable Jobs Fund, and I also coordinate the Vermont Forest Industry Network, of which the Vermont Woodworks Council is a member, active participant in that, and many of you are as well. Today's webinar sort of was spurred from some work that the Woodworks Council and Northern Forest Center and some other partners had been working on with the realities of COVID and the uncertainties of COVID. We got together sort of as service providers to talk about ways in which we might be able to help woodworkers and others in the forest arena navigate these quite uncertain times. And one of the things that has cropped up is just how to, manage our financials in a really good way. And so we got in touch with Jim Verzino, who will be presenting today, who is going to talk about sort of how to do this and how to do it really well, and what some of those best practices are. Because I think pandemic or no pandemic, it's always good to be able to learn more about getting control of the financial aspect of our businesses. So that is really what today is all about. And since it's being recorded, hopefully you guys will have access to this afterward. And I hope you'll ask Jim some really good questions and maybe prompt a discussion because this is a topic that I know creates a lot of pain points for everyone. So any opportunity we have to learn is awesome. So thank you to Jim for taking the time to help us out with this. And I think with that, I'll turn it back to you, Kathleen, to get us going.
Thank you. So we're just going to launch right into this presentation. Jim has got control of the screen. He is going to put up a PowerPoint and talk through this. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box. And I think probably, Jim, you'll stop for questions and maybe some activity along the way as well.
Exactly, yep.
Thinking and processing of information. So while Jim is presenting, if you would keep your microphones on mute, that would be great. But feel free to use the chat box with questions and I will pass those along. Take it away, Jim.
And Kathleen, don't be scared to interrupt me and pass along questions during the presentation. I don't want to sort of like just speak for 20 or 30 straight minutes. That is boring for everyone, and really the questions are the part where the rubber meets the road, so I like to answer those rather than worry about any pre-canned thing that I have. So welcome everyone. I've worked with about 50 different food and agriculture oriented businesses throughout mostly Vermont, a little bit of Massachusetts and New Hampshire as well over the last 4 years. I can get into my background a little bit more later. But cash flow and finance, financial management is a little bit different depending on your business model. So I don't want to take up too much time doing this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to call on each person. And while I want you to give me quickly
a Zoom call at the same time. Thank you very much.
Is the name of your firm. And what I'm wanting to know is, do you custom work? Or do you do production work that then is inventory that gets sold on the market? Because I'm going to focus on different things depending on who the audience is here. And lastly, just sort of, you're taking your time to be here. I'm honored, but I'm wondering kind of what brought you here. Was it a cash flow thing, profit? What is it? So I'm just going to walk sort of across my screen here and call on people, and I'll remind you when I do what it is. Ken Coleno, you're at the top left of my screen. So the name of your firm, custom or production work, and what brought you here?
The name of my firm is Mountain Woodwright, and I do probably custom work, and I'm just curious.
Okay. Cool. Pete Michelini?
Close enough. Michelini.
Michelini. Okay, so name of the firm, customer, production work, and what brought you here?
I just do business as myself, Pete Michelini Furniture, and I'm just curious about
Okay.
learning new things.
So when you say you just do business for yourself, I mean, do you do custom work that people order and say, I want this thing? Or do you make things that
Yeah.
you put in inventory and then sell it as people want it?
No inventory, just commission basis. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Tim Clark, name of your firm, customer production, and what brought you here? You're muted.
Timothy Clark, cabinet maker, chair right. And I don't have any inventory. It's all custom work, but I have regular things that I make all the time that people order. And what brought me here? Just curious. You know, I always use help with money.
Who can't? All right. Charles Ogg.
Yeah, hi. I just build custom pieces. I don't hold any inventory except lumber, and I am here just to learn more financing. I've had a small business for many years, and now I'm currently 100% in it. So, more
All right.
tips.
Cool. All right. Thanks. All custom so far. Andrew Pierce.
Hi, my company is called Andrew Pierce Bowles. We carry a lot of finished goods inventory, and we do a small amount of custom furniture. And I've been in business for 9 years. Cash flow was a really big problem for me when we were smaller. It hasn't gotten a whole lot easier, but it's different now than it was then. And I'd love some information on what you know.
Okay, cool. Scott Duffy, customer production work, and what brought you here? You're muted, Scott.
Hey, Scott, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. So it's Rockledge Farm Woodworks, and we do approximately equal dollar volume custom work versus products that we have in inventory and that we
Okay.
produce in some quantity. And so we're actually growing business-wise, and we have a number of financial questions that are incorporated in the growth that we're experiencing. And, you know, frankly, financial questions have always been at the forefront of our program here. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, Andy Van Ness.
Hello. Hi, Andy Van Ness. Van Ness Woodcrafts is my business, and I do make an inventory for Renaissance Fair and craft show sales. Okay. Obviously, not this year. And it's at the fairs that I'll pick up custom work, whether it's more items that specific to the customer, how they want it designed, or if I happen to get a furniture piece out of it, those are great. And I welcome that kind of work. I welcome the custom stuff. And I've had one, like last year, at the beginning of last year, I had one gig doing a kitchen renovation for cabinetry as well. So why am I here today? Well, I'm hoping that I can I'm really terrible with the bookkeeping and the financial part of things. So it's, I'm hoping to listen mostly and see what I get. It's the first time. I've been a VWWC member since the beginning of this year. So hopefully we're going to find some ways to help me get out of this rut. It's not my fault.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Dave Redmond.
I'm with the Northern Forest Center, and actually have been assisting a number of wood products businesses in Vermont as well as throughout the region. My interest is, just listening and observing and seeing if we can help in any way.
Thanks, Dave. Chris Lindgren.
Whoever's on the phone, can you mute?
Yeah. It was just going to do that.
Chris Lindgren. Okay, let's go to Eric Diven.
Hi, I'm Eric Diven. I am of Long Walk Woodworking, and I am here to learn about money, same as everybody else.
And
Oh,
Eric,
and principally
custom or
custom,
production
sorry.
work? Custom work or production for inventory and sales?
Custom, principally.
Okay. Paul Frederick.
Yeah, I'm with the Vermont Department of Forest Parks and Recreation. I work primarily with businesses in the forest economy across the region. Basically, just trying to get a better understanding of the financial reports and how they're used.
Okay. All right. We will be talking not a whole lot about the report specifically, but really about some better ways to work with them. So let's see where we get there. And if we've got enough time, we can certainly still go over them. David Hurwitz.
Yeah, hi. I work under David Hurwitz Originals, but I'm a one-man shop, and I'm furniture maker, primarily custom furniture. I've been doing pretty much all work on a custom commission basis. I have a very small limited inventory right now of some speculative pieces that I used to make because I used to do craft shows and galleries and that sort of thing. Occasionally I still sell some of that over the web, but my main focus right now is custom commission work.
Okay.
And yeah, and I'm very curious about just everything you have to say. There's always more to learn, particularly about profit and cash flow.
Cool. And
doing this
in 802-558-1040. I don't know what that is. I suspect it's someone who's here also on video. And all right. Well, let's go ahead and we'll go to the screen share, and I can introduce myself and see where we're at here. So is everyone seeing? Let's see. Okay. So is everyone seeing this? Is everyone seeing right now one slide that says revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king? Give me a thumbs up if that's what you're seeing. Okay, cool. All right. So what we're going to do here today is really talk about cash management. I think I wasn't writing down the names because I wasn't going fast enough, but one of the things that somebody asked in the questions was about the management reports. And I think one of the challenges that we all have as very small business owners, I'll get into who I am in a minute, but I also am a very small business owner, is the financial reports that we use only tell a small part of the story. And really, I sort of equate what your finances do to a scoreboard. There are different pieces of the score that you need to know. And the financial reports usually only do a small part, particularly the profit and loss statement. Most people look at it and say, well, we're making profits, so we must be doing well. And yet we don't have cash in the bank. And why is that? What's happening there? So what I'm going to talk mostly about is how to navigate the cash part of this and keep ourselves in a situation where there's cash in the bank, rather than, even though it feels like we're growing and we're getting a lot of work, we don't have cash in the bank. So that's really what I'm going to talk mostly about. So I don't know, different people have different goals for their business. A lot of people like being a quote unquote one-man show or a very small business. And yet we tend to be thinking about when people talk about their business, they talk about how much revenue they're getting. And revenue is actually a terrible measurement of the health of a business. I mean, multi-million-dollar companies go out of business all the time because the issue really isn't about managing, isn't really about the amount of sales. It's about the amount of profit and about the amount of money we have in the bank and how resilient we can be when times turn down. So I always tell people, you know, I don't really care about your revenue all that much. What I care about is, you know, how much profit are you keeping, and how is your cash flow? Are you cash flow positive? We're going to talk later about what I call growing broke, and you'll see what that means. But who am I? I was most recently founding entrepreneur residents of Wyndham Groves. For those that have never heard of it, it was based in Brattleboro. It was a part of Strolling of the Heifers. And we were a business accelerator, which meant that we took cohorts of anywhere from 5 to 8 food and agriculture business owners and took them through a 4-month program all around how to make their business work better. For some people, that might have meant more sales. For other people, it might have meant keep the sales you've got, but do it more profitably so that you can stay in business. So we had a lot of successes there. We were the VBSR Inspiration Innovation Award winners in 2018. 48 businesses went through it, over 70 jobs created, over $3 million in outside funding. But a big part of that role in that job was really to look at people's financial reports in combination with conversations and actually figure out the health of the business. One of my favorite stories actually is a woman that shut down her business after being in Wyndham Groves from what she learned. So this lovely woman was 70 years old, over 70, I think she was 71. And she had been a school teacher and administrator all of her first career, and then started a farming business that dealt with a rather unusual product. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to give the person away, but it dealt with a product that a lot of Americans aren't used to using. So not only did she have the challenge of getting the product out there to be sold, but she also had to educate the public about why they should even be using it to begin with. Well, we went through the program, we were going through her finances, and we were doing a deep dive on her profit and loss and how money was moving into her business and back out of her business. And we discovered that the more she sold, the more she lost. And it was very frustrating for her. She had put the last 6 or 7 years of her life into the business, really put a good retirement on hold. Her husband, I had never met her husband, but he must have been a saint because she was spending all of her time on this business. And the long and short of it was, every time she sold something, it cost her more money to deliver it than the money she actually made selling it. So every $100 she would sell, it would cost her $110. But the money was moving in such different segments that she couldn't see, that she couldn't get a handle on that and see what was happening. So I actually consider it one of my biggest successes that this woman actually shut her business down once she learned what was really happening, because she essentially was tossing away her retirement into a business that simply wasn't going to work. So, you know, we have lots of success stories of people that have grown their business by 5 and 7 times and massively expanded. But on a truly personal level, to see someone be able to enjoy their retirement and their marriage in their later years is much better than seeing someone, you know, not do that. So one of my favorite stories there. But now, so due to COVID, the Business Accelerator shut down, and right now I'm president of Creators Financial, and we do bookkeeping as well as fractional chief financial officer work, which means I help people individually. I help people do forecasts, figure out if they come out with a new product line, how much money is it potentially going to make, look at 3 scenarios, help people make decisions like, if I buy this new expensive $50,000 piece of equipment, it could increase my production by 10x. How many units am I going to need to sell in order to get that thing to pay for itself and have it start profiting? So I do things like that with my customers, as well as the month-to-month bookkeeping. And then I also hold what I call it a board of directors meeting. And it's usually myself and the owner or owners of the business. And every month we go through what's happened in, you know, it's a 5-item meeting that I have every month with every business owner I work with, where I start out by, what's happened in your business or in your life that can affect the business, right? Some people go through a divorce. Some people have a sick parent that's just not allowing them to be in the business long enough. Other times it can be, a key employee quit or something like that. But we start with that. Then we go over the financial reports, and we don't just go over the financial reports in a traditional way. I go over things like, what's your resilience ratio, which is really how long can you stay in business if everything just stopped, right? If sales stopped coming in, if COVID hit, basically. So we do that. Then we look at somebody's goals for the month, and then go through any new issues that come up and set goals for the next month. So it's a 5-step. It's about a 1.5 hour meeting. I do it with all my customers, and so that's kind of what I do. So I do a lot of these kind of conversations. A lot of my job is really being a therapist as much as it is a financial person, because most entrepreneurs are bad at money, and that's okay. It's just what it is, and that's why people like me exist. I enjoy that part of it. So without further ado, these are kind of the main things we're going to cover today. And one of the things I've learned in the last several months is, particularly when we do sessions on Zoom, the timing is just a mystery to me. Sometimes things that I think will take an hour and a half take literally 20 minutes, and other times I'll plan on something taking a half hour and it can go 2 hours. So, we're just going to run this program, and I invite you to just yell out your questions, or feel free to put them in the chat. And Kathleen, just feel free to interrupt me whenever you want to take questions, particularly if they're relevant to the thing that's like on the screen right then, because I think as I answer people's questions right in the moment, it's that much better. Now, almost everyone does primarily custom work. So I'm going to use examples here when I can about those, about doing custom work, which is really more like a consulting services business than it is like a production business. And we'll talk about business models here in a minute. So we're going to talk about the 3 roles that every business needs, how to do pricing to guarantee success, 7 levers that you can pull to increase profit and cash flow, and reducing stress. Those are the big things we're going to talk about. So the first is the 3 roles that every business needs. So one of the we always start with sales and marketing, right? If you don't have a reliable source of leads coming in that can potentially result in sales, that's always the biggest problem, because we need enough of those, right? As particularly for those of us that run the entire business ourselves, or maybe it's just ourselves and one other person doing custom work. I've done that for years. I mean, the equivalent essentially is being a freelancer. And we always get into this conundrum where either there's not enough time to sell, so we get something, we build something, and then by the time we're done building, yes, I will be sending out the slides for sure. By the time we're done building that thing, we have not been out selling enough, and now so it's a lot of peaks and valleys, and we need to find a way to solve that. So sales and marketing is a big one. Of course, operations is a big one. Can we reduce costs in any way? Can we do things faster? And can we do things with more customer satisfaction? Many entities don't realize how much they spend just fixing mistakes. So, and lastly, it's financial management. As our companies grow, or even if we want to keep them small, financial management is things like I said, if I buy a new piece of equipment, or if I hire someone, what is the result going to be? How much more do I need to sell to cover that cost? And do I have enough pipeline to do that? So those are really the 3 major roles that every business needs. Now, nobody's good at all 3. Most people are good at 1. If we're lucky, 2. But most of the kind of businesses that I work with, which are, like I said, food, agriculture, it's all what I kind of refer to as artist entrepreneurs, because the thing we produce, whether it's granola or cabinetry or furniture, that's our art, right? For me, my art is doing what I'm doing right now. And generally people that know their art hate dealing with the money. And this took me years. I hated dealing with the money. I went through this for decades. And and at first I hated even talking about money, and I hated raising my prices. And I was always scared to really give the price to the buyer. And now I kind of do the opposite, because it's the only thing you can do. But most entrepreneurs struggle with money. So most of us are good at one. And if we're not good at the others, we need to find people that are. And that's a key part of making this work. And if it's about, if you're good at what you do and you need to get more business, the economy is very different now than it was. Maybe that means selling more online. Maybe it means increasing traffic. How do, Andy, I know that you said you used to do production things that you sold at Renaissance fairs, but you do some custom work. Talk to me about, Andy. I'm just calling on you because I'm seeing you on the screen. So I'll call on others too. How do you find customers for your custom work, Andy Van Ness? You're on mute, Andy.
So again, by doing the shows and being out there in public, and that's been my whole marketing plan, is doing in-person shows. And I don't use business cards. I use a full color postcard with all my information back, with photographs in the front, and I hand those out like crazy, and it usually pays off. At least, not with a lot of volume in custom work, but occasionally I'll get, like last year, I got a nice commission table, a gaming table, and so that alone kept me going for the end of the year.
Okay.
And I'll just add, anything that I'm doing online has been really minimal, because I've just been focused only on the in-person stuff.
So, and now that sort of COVID has hit, has that really affected your business because your primary marketing model basically went away?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, so I work with a lot of food businesses, farmers and others. And this is probably the biggest problem for that audience. Is many food businesses, how they get started in their first 2 years is really farmers markets, which are super profitable and, a really easy way to get out there and sell. And, a lot of them are having to retool. And, I don't know how long you can hold on. I don't know if online is an option for you, but this is where we get to, it's why we need to have, somebody that can do all three, right? I mean, you can build, but if you can't be on site right now, if you look at the circles on the screen, you've got a sales and marketing problem, right? And how do you get people? How do you get them to find you? And that's not really the focus of this particular presentation, but you can talk to me offline if you want to, and I can tell you what a lot of the food businesses I've worked with and other production-oriented businesses that I've worked with have been doing to work on that. Eric, Eric, I ask you the same question. Do you how do you get out there and find enough work? Because I know Eric, because we talked last week, you're purely custom work. So Eric, how do you get out there and find enough business and know that you've got enough?
Yeah, so it's been a combination of word of mouth and working actually on developing a better marketing plan in light of the current situation. Just a bit of background for everybody else on the call. I moved from the Boston area in the beginning of January, and I'm sort of trying to relaunch a business in the middle of a pandemic. So I would have been, hoping to do some of the same things that Andy was talking about with regards to craft fairs and, open studios and stuff like that. And, those options are off the table. And so it's been a bit of an interesting year, doing a little bit of pivoting, a little bit of contract work to keep some cash flow going, and figuring out, I had some projects when I came up here to work on. And so, yeah, the sales and marketing is one of the things that's on the to-do list.
All right.
Urgent
All right.
thing.
Okay, cool. Well, I think we can see why sort of we need all three of these roles, right? So how do I, let's see here. Sorry, I'm gonna move the slide. So one of the, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it says $5,000 took you a minute. And if you're like me, the faces are in front of it. No, ma'am, it took my entire life, right? So one of the challenges we have is how much do we charge when we do custom work? And how do Ken, I'm going to go to you and ask, how do you know how much to charge? Have you just been doing it for so long that you figured it out?
I haven't figured it out.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
It's
Let me ask you this.
it's like, how do you know for sure,
Well, we probably never know for sure. How long have you been doing this?
I've only been doing this a few years. I retired from the construction business a few years ago. And now I'm doing this to keep busy, stay out of the bars.
Fair enough. Okay. So it's not, so if you have a bad sales month or two, your family's not going to suffer too much.
No, they're not. But I know I'm going to make this bigger and increase my business. So that's why I'm tuning into this, to find out what's going on.
Okay. So one of the things I always do when I work with people is always ask them to, sort of begin with the end in mind, or work backwards, quite literally. Most of us, no matter how much we think we can, because there's so much other management to do in our work, if we can do 25 hours of really billable production per week, I would say that's a very good week. So, to kind of back into that, just to use some round numbers, if I need to clear $50,000 a year, so we'll call that, pre-tax salary. Let's say you're paying yourself a salary. You want to give yourself $1,000 a week. Now, after that $1,000, you have to pay taxes on that as an employee, but you need $1,000 a week. So we want to start working backwards from that. Now, if you're doing purely custom work, assuming you can only be productive 20 to 25 hours a week. I don't know what math that is. If someone wants to bring that up, that's probably it's about $50 an hour, I guess. Plus you have all your other expenses. So you're probably looking at, even if you don't charge by the hour, I never charge by the hour. I only charge flat fees. But of course I work backwards, and I know how much I need to make per hour to make my life work. So I always sort of back into that. But you have to put in all of your other expenses plus your own time if you're doing custom work. So to know how much you need to charge, you need to start with how much you need to make. Assume you can only do it productively 20 hours a week, and then start with those numbers. And we can figure out, sort of, everyone's going to be different, but let's say your overhead is, I don't know, let's call it $1,000 a month on your loans and other things you've got going, your loans, your utilities, etc. So, you're looking at, so you're probably looking at about $75 an hour that you're going to have to be charging to really make your life work. Now, here's another Ken, you just mentioned you're hoping to grow your business. One of the reasons, and this is probably the most frustrating thing that I talk to people about all the time, is the concept I call growing broke. So one of the challenges that we have is we start selling more, but it actually costs us. We don't collect the money until we've already spent a lot of money. So I did this little example here where I use the term get leads. So I always tell people, you want to spend at least 5% of your money on marketing. That is 5% of your revenue. So I like to spend more, but at a minimum 5%. And then when I use sales presentations here, really that's time. So even if you don't have a commissioned salesperson and you're doing the selling yourself, just the time it takes to be on the phone. Now, if you're doing a lot of custom work, you probably have a lot of proposal writing time, I'm guessing, to figure out how much you're going to charge. So if someone comes to you saying they want you to build something, I don't know, I'm guessing you have a lot of time that you have to spend actually just figuring out what you need to charge for the job. So, don't forget, time is your most valuable asset, and every hour that you're spending doing that is time you're not spending making money. So we need to definitely consider that. So for you, it might be even more than 5%. And don't forget, time is similar to cash. It's worse in some ways because you can't get it back. You can always go make more money if you need to, hopefully. But once we use time, we're never getting it back. So, and then all the other expenses that we have, well, you'll notice that we don't get paid until the second to last line, right? And the cash outflows, by the way, you'll notice are only 90%, and the cash inflows are 100%. Hopefully that other 10% is what we call profit. But if we grow every month and we get more and more orders, we end up basically at the end of every month with very little cash, no cash, and a bigger and bigger business. This is what I meant when I said revenue is vanity, right? Getting bigger for its own sake really isn't that good. Most of us suffer a lot of stress from that. So this is also about creating a business model that allows you to stay cash positive throughout. I know a lot of people have shut off their video, but for those that are on, I'd like to see a show of hands of how many people take enough deposits so that as they're getting the work done through milestones, you're able to get paid throughout your project, particularly larger projects that last longer than, say, a month. Anybody? Okay. So one of the best things, so I've been doing service consulting type work all my life, building, in my case, usually it's building computer systems instead of furniture, but how I always sold those with milestones. So it was always, as much as I could get up front, I try to get at least 30% before I even started the project. And that would cover buying some things, but also commit the customer. But then I would create milestones, and every milestone, so I'm not charging by the hour, but I would say, okay, first milestone might be framing is done, another payment. Next milestone might be well, it depends on what you're making, I suppose, but if you're making something large, maybe it's all the drawers completed, whatever it is. But you need to create milestones and have the customer pay you for each milestone. Because, I've seen a lot of artists of all kinds get a commission, do the work, not get paid, or get paid 50%. And that is just terrible.
Jim, sorry, this is
Yes,
Andrew. Quick question. So like I said before, a very small amount of our production is custom furniture. When we do the custom furniture, we take a 50% deposit. But for 90% of our business, we're making bowls and cutting boards. and we are building inventory throughout the whole year and then selling it. It's not a cash up front kind of business.
Right, right. Okay. So you're more like a lot of the food businesses I work with. So they have to
Yeah.
produce everything and yeah, so couple different things you can do there. I'm actually going to get to this a little bit later when I get to the 7 levers that you can pull. How much inventory do you create, Andrew? I mean, do you think you create, does it all happen seasonally? Are you doing it throughout the year? Is Christmas really big and therefore you have to stockpile? What's your consistency on that? Well, that's my first question. What's the consistency of sales?
Yeah, we're a very seasonal business. We're a high gift giving. So fourth quarter is really big for us. But in order to have enough inventory for fourth quarter, we have to produce at kind of a full tilt all year long. So we typically lose money for 4 months out of the year in order to have a really good season.
Okay. And do you sell directly to retailers, or do you sell to wholesalers who then sell to retailers?
So we have our own website, we have our own retail store, and then we wholesale to about 150 stores across the country. And we do corporate sales as well.
Okay, so as a percentage of revenue, how much do you sell directly either through your stores or your website? 50%, 20%?
Last year it was 50-50. This year it's 75% direct to consumer.
Nice. Good for you. Okay. So we're going to get to some of that in a little bit, but if you know it's seasonal, then you may need to arrange for lines of credit. But we're going to get to a few of those different ways. I mean, the great thing about things like online is you get paid right away before you ship. But we're going to try to optimize, but as we showed in that other slide, you're going to have to put a lot of money's got to go out up front, unfortunately. So,
oh, I know.
All right. Yeah. So what we're going to try to do though is minimize that as best we can. So we talked already about pricing to guarantee profit is what I call it. And that is beginning with the end in mind, knowing how much you need to live to make it work. In general, if you can get your cost of goods sold down to 20%, that's best. 25 to 30% of list price is a good number. If you can stay at 25%, you're probably going to be safe. If you're doing production kind of stuff like Andrew was talking about, build in buffers. But really the last one is the objection that I come across most. And that is people quote a price and then they say, well, people don't want to pay that much. And this is where I go back to the slide that had the 3 different roles in the business. Generally, if people don't want to pay what you need to charge, that means we're selling to the wrong audience. I've had people in my accelerator that sold, chocolate bars for $20 a bar, right? They don't have to sell a lot of them to make the same kind of money as the ones that are selling for $1 a bar. And it's so much about the story that we tell and the people we're telling it to. So again, this is not a sales and marketing session. However, part of our financial plan has to be, are we selling to the right people? Because it can be easy to get lots of people stopping in our shop, as it were, whether our shop is online or by the side of a road, but getting the right people that appreciate what we do at the price they can pay is really important. So, the 2 choices, if that's what's happening, if you've got a lot of interested people, but they're not willing to pay the price you're offering, is either figuring out how to do it cheaper or finding other customers. And we spend a lot of time in this in our accelerator because most people that sell food also don't really understand who their market is and the best ways to find their market. So these are the 7 levers that we can pull to increase cash flow. Now notice the ones on the left. really they're going to help with profit, but they're not going to help with cash flow. Okay, so we can increase price. We can increase the number of transactions we do, so just do more business. We can reduce our overheads. Those are four that can really help us with the profitability. Now, the cash flow part of it, and again, you know, Andrew's business is seasonal, so probably there's going to need to be a line of credit there, because if your business is that seasonal, that's one of the ways you have to do that. But the other ways to do it is increasing accounts receivable. So if you can buy things, if you can buy materials, net 30 or better yet, net 60, and pay those out, that's the accounts payable, right? We extend our accounts payable and try to shorten as much as we can, our accounts receivable. If we can shorten those, and then also shorten the time that our inventory stays sitting, those are the ways we're going to increase cash flow. So the challenge of this is these are all kind of interdependent. So it's really hard for us to increase the volume of transactions if we don't also work on the right side of the screen and work on our accounts, work on the timing of our money, how fast our money moves, either in or out of our business. But these are the 7 levers that you can use for cash flow. And also, one of the other big challenges with all the business owners I work with when we start out working together is just the feeling like I don't know where my money goes, number one, or I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay the taxes or the payroll on the given date that they come. So there's actually a great book called Profit First, but the long and short of the Profit First methodology, and I use it myself, is really what we call the envelope system. If you've ever read a personal finance book, they talk about take your paycheck, and if you want to go on vacation, put this much away for vacation, and put this much away for if you want to buy a second home, etc. And really, that's exactly what I do. Is whenever twice a month, I go into all my money comes into my operations account, and twice a month, I look at total sales and I put away money for taxes. I put away the money for payroll, capital expenditures. If you know you're saving for something that you want to buy later, I'm saving every other week, or actually it's twice a month I do it. And I put 3% of sales into that capital expenditure account. I know I always want to spend, at least for me, 10% of sales on marketing. So I take 10% of sales, and then I also want to make sure I have some profit. So I do 5% to profit. Whatever's left, that's how much money I have to actually spend on my business, on my operations. So it's a really clean way to not have to worry about the taxes and not have to worry about if you've got enough money to meet payroll, etc. It's a simple system, but it really works to allow us to see how much money we actually have. And it's one of the reasons why I'm not crazy about someone asked earlier about the financial reports, which are really, I can cover some of that, but I don't have those. It's really not in this particular presentation. Is the financial reports often they only give us a part of the story depending on the financial report we're looking at. And the way they're traditionally made, they're actually hard to read. Most people don't really know how to read a balance sheet because most of us don't really understand equity. And really what we're looking for there is the resilience and the status of our business. So I've got there are other ways to do that. So this is the methodology that I use to really just reduce the stress. And like I said, if you're interested in learning more about this, just grab that book, Profit First. You can listen to it when you're driving around. I use it as I actually listened to it first as a audio book when I was driving. So, lots of ways to do that. And the last thing I want to focus on here, and I have no idea what our time looks like. Okay, so we're approaching 2 o'clock. one of the challenges that I have, and anybody who owns a business has, is we have lots of decisions on how should we spend our time in a given day, right? What should I do next? And I use this hierarchy. So whenever I'm looking at what problem should I be solving, well, I always go to whatever level I need to go to improve my business. So if I don't have a good system, when I'm talking about sales, that is, do I have a good system to consistently and predictably get enough business that my business can operate? If I don't have that, I'm not going to bother fixing a problem of, can I operate profitably? Because if I don't have sales, even if I had good systems, if I don't have customers, I still don't have a business. So depending on the phase you are in your business, you know, Andrew talked about where he is with selling across the country and his own shop and a production house. Okay, Andrew's probably in a profit mode because he solved the sales problem. Now he's gone to improve. Now you want to go to, how do I improve profit? And then once you get to a point where you've got enough profit, then it's about having order in the business so that you're not driving yourself crazy. That's about getting procedures down. That's where your business gets bigger and you've got, you know, lots of different people doing different tasks. So this is the hierarchy I use whenever I'm not sure which thing I should be doing today, or really setting goals for a month. So every month I say to myself, you know, what do I want to get done this month? And one of the things that happens is, as we increase sales, then we make more profit, we get a little bit, then we get some order. What usually happens is that's when we decide we want to grow some more. So maybe we buy a new piece of equipment. So now we can produce more. So now now we've got the ability to produce more, but now we need more sales because now we've increased our overhead because we just borrowed money to buy a big piece of equipment. So we're always going mostly through these bottom three, trying to figure out what to fix next. And this is the order that I always advise people to use, and it's what I do myself whenever I'm not sure what kind of the one or two big things I should accomplish in a month are. So this is the decision matrix, just on, you know, when you're not sure what to be doing, this is the guide that I use. All right, and that is pretty much it. I haven't really been watching. I haven't been able to watch the chat, so I don't know if we've had some questions, but I certainly will happily take any.
I have been watching the chat. There are no questions in there now, but folks, please feel free to just ask those questions while Jim is here with us. You can unmute your mics or pop open your video so we can recognize you.
I want to ask a question, Jim, because I know a lot of woodworkers that we've been working with, and I think probably all businesses, we know that times are so uncertain right now. Is there sort of a rule of thumb for businesses in terms of that buffer and sort of as you plan ahead and think about how much money you need to have in the bank to withstand any of the sudden changes that might occur? I mean, I don't know if there's just a sort of rule of thumb of like, you should have this much set aside. Yeah, so pre-COVID, the rule of thumb was 3 to 6 months. So it takes a lot to actually get 3 months worth of all of your overhead in the bank. 6 months is best. And you know, some people want more, but that 6 months is considered a fairly stable way of doing that for a small business of 10 people or less. But as you may or may not know, once you get up to say 3 or 4 employees, your expenses drastically increase. So, you know, keeping 4 months worth of overhead in the bank is tough. But that's where we try to get people, and that's part of the envelope system, right? That's, you know, people put that into profit, and then profit gets taxed. So at the end of the year, sometimes people spend down the profit envelope
what I always recommend is spend down the profit envelope at the end of the year on either marketing or capital equipment that you're then going to utilize to grow the business next year. So, but 3 to 6 months is kind of the rule of thumb. 6 months is best, but that's hard to reach.
Jim, you mentioned several times in your presentation about revenue, and there's a lot of revenue pressure, growing the business. And a lot of that's psychological, I think, in many respects. How do you convince on your one-on-one dialogue people to really focus on the cash flow and profitability and really turn the conversation, you mentioned it earlier, but turn the conversation to those items as the foundation for growth? In my travels, we get ahead of ourselves and try to drive revenue prior to having a solid foundation in terms of cash flow and profitability, and certainly cash flow being first and having cash reserve.
Right. So in terms of how I do that, I mentioned that when I work, month to month with clients, I have the monthly board meeting. And one of the very first things I do when I work in that scenario is ask people to explain to me sort of their dream life in their business. And many times that dream life is, enough time to spend with my family and enough energy to be able to enjoy my kids, things like that. Things that have nothing to do with actually growing a business. Now, maybe you need to grow the business to get to a point to have that, but this is when I can then turn the conversation into profit and cash flow rather than revenue. Because most entrepreneurs that want to grow a business think of it in terms of revenue, when really the thing that most of us want is time. So I actually, talk a lot about how do we do that conversion. It's the same conversation I started talking with it about. Now, if you're doing custom work, when we were talking about that, it's about, how much dollars per hour and pricing appropriately. But it's the same kind of discussion. And we literally start from wherever they are and say, okay, to get you to a point where you can go to your kid's football game or soccer game or whatever, play at 4 p.m. Here's the things we need to do to get there. And let's create an 18-month plan to get you to a point where that much money's coming in to be able to do that. And then every month we're looking at those goals because most people, when we start our business, we think about revenue, but really what most of us want is time freedom. And, just to be fair, like I'm building my business to sell it. Like I know exactly why I'm building it. I want to sell it in 5 years. So all my decisions are based on building a business that does that, not on making me more money this month. Like I know how much money I need to make every month to remain a reasonably happy guy. But after that, everything goes into building sellable business with equity. But that's just my desires. Everybody's different.
But the key to that is cash flow and profitability in terms of X value to the business, not revenue. Top line doesn't create the actual price of a business or a value of a business is profitability and cash flow. And there's a lot of dialogue about that and asset values in terms of selling a business versus
right. And
for
those that do, and for those that do want to sell their business, the things really to look out for, there's a couple. One is really the profit. They call it owner benefit really, but it's what you're able to pay yourself plus money for your car and other things that the business uses that you get to take advantage of. So it's usually a multiple of anywhere from 2 to 4 times. It can be 2 to 5 times of the owner benefit per year. So if I'm benefiting $80,000 per year on the business, I can potentially sell it for, $160 to $400,000 or $500,000 for that business. Now, the other big important piece of that is how involved does the owner need to be in the business? If you're selling a business, let's say that I'm a woodworker and I make $100,000 selling these things that I make at Renaissance fairs. I'll just use that as an example. And by the end of the year, I clear 100 grand and I'm doing most of the making. Well, then I'm buying a job. I'm not buying a business because I'm still tied to it. The more the owner is tied to the day-to-day, the less value the business is going to have on the open market. So the more you can move yourself out of the business, and that's about having procedures and about having, if you've got, having employees or others, agents that can do the work, the more value you're going to get if you actually want to sell the business. And that's a whole other kind of discussion, but it's an important one. Was it Ken that was talking about used to have a construction business?
I didn't own the business myself. I worked for a large construction company.
Okay.
Big difference.
Yeah. Okay.
So Jim, I have a question, a pretty general question, and Scott had to jump off. He did let me know that. So you talked about those 3 core responsibilities. So for a company that really does not have that financial core competence, but does everything else well, what do you suggest? What's the step that person takes to identify who it is that can help them get there and what they should be looking for?
So the best way that I've found is to get yourself out there in peer groups and networks. So most people in, let's say under $500,000, 1 to 5 people in the business are usually either very good at the selling or the production. And the best way to find the other person that can do the other thing that you can't do, if we start with sales and production, because you do need the finance person, but you probably can wait on that until after your business is up around $100,000. I mean, you might need to hire a bookkeeper, but a true, somebody who's actually doing forecasting and things like that, you can probably wait. And in this kind of business, Sustainable Jobs Fund and other public agencies can actually fund getting you people like me, so you don't have to pay for it yourself. But if you're a producer or a seller, whichever one you're not good at, get in LinkedIn groups, get in Facebook groups, get in groups like this, and literally tell people what you're looking for. Because people that are good at selling, depending on what they do, hopefully you can get them to help you sell where you're not having to lay out money first. It's not always going to happen, but it's about getting out there and getting to know people, cutting deals that can work best for your cash flow.
And somebody like you potentially could be available for consult for a business?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, let me here what I started to do, and I kind of lost my. Yes, if people wanted to contact me, let's see here. So I can be available, and I always, I always try to utilize grant funding whenever I can. So when people reach out to me, most of my Vermont customers, especially in the early days, in the early phases of using me, I'd say 80% of them I find a grant that will fund my initial work.
Very good to know.
Work with me on creating that envelope system or doing forecasting or anything like that. I always try to find a grant to pay for that work. And then if they like working with me and they decide they want to use me month to month for bookkeeping or whatever, usually then we change it over. But, I'm connected enough to enough agencies that usually I can find a grant for, if it's an agriculture business or a wood products business, that kind of thing. Vermont, you know, it's a half-time job just knowing where to find them all. But, you know, I've been doing it long enough that I figured that out now. So that's me.
Thank you.
And you'll see my website is mostly oriented toward food businesses, but you know, the principles are the same. Anything else?
Are there no other questions, folks?
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep. So there's a couple of things I will mention. If I can do that. Does everybody have Jim's contact now? Are we good with that? All right, good. So the funding that has brought this to you, the ACCD grant funding, the CARES funding, is still available through the Vermont Woodworks Council for a little bit of assistance in building some marketing and networking opportunities. We are doing some virtual networking, like today. We're doing some video, looking for some ways to create video in shops. If you have anything going on that you want to share with others, and you have even an iPhone, show us what you're doing. Because we can't get together like we're used to doing, but we really want to keep people connected. So the other thing that's happening is we're calling all our members and we're doing interviews and articles. So if you have not had a call from either me or Chandler Hansen or Kate Zim or Krista Campbell, please email me and let me know that, because I do want to reach out and chat with everybody who is a member of the Woodworks Council, because we really want to talk to you. We want to know what things are like and what we should be looking at in 2021. And I would ask you all to think about that. You know, what could we do next year that you think would be of help? These are challenging times. We know that, although business has been very good for a lot of folks. We have no idea what next year is going to bring. And we do want to know what will be of help to you that we can start to plan for in 2021. So interviews, videos, what's on the horizon next year? Are there ways you think that we could bring those networking opportunities and broad-based marketing for the industry as a whole? So don't be silent. Let me hear from you. You can write directly to me. And that is Kathleen at KMWarner, Comcast.net, or you can send to info@vermontwood.com. Yes. With any suggestions or questions. So Christine, anything you want to add to that?
I don't think so. I think you covered it. Yeah, I just want to thank Jim for talking about these financial issues, and you know, just know that you're not alone. If you're struggling with some questions, you know, financial questions in your business, you're certainly not alone. There are people like Jim out there that can help you navigate all that and understand what your financials are telling you and help you ultimately make better decisions for your business. So please do take advantage of those opportunities. But yes. Yeah, I think we're
actually I have one or two other things to mention. So if one of the reasons I actually don't go over financial statements in this particular kind of session is it's incredibly boring over this kind of medium to do that. And there are some great videos on YouTube on, understanding financial statements, understanding cash flow statement. Just type into YouTube tutorial on financial statements or tutorial on profit and loss statement, tutorial on income statement, anything like that. And there's some great stuff out there. And, it's going to be better than I could do in this format because people spent a lot of time producing a quality video. And one last thing, I would say 9 or 9.5 out of every 10 people that talks to me that's young in their business. And when I say young in their business, I mean the business is less than 5 years old, especially, are completely embarrassed. Like they mention how embarrassed they are and how scared they've been to have this conversation because they feel like it's messy. Like, don't be scared. Every one of us, people like me, it's just what it is. Anybody who's been doing this for a while knows that. An artist entrepreneur, practically by definition, is going to be terrible at managing their money. If anyone's ever been to a debtor's anonymous meeting, you go in there, 9 out of 10 people will say they are entrepreneurs.
Thank you for that, Jim. Because
I know, because I've been to those meetings.
Yeah, that's pretty typical. I know, I look at the screen and I know all these guys are like amazing woodworkers, sawdust they know, wood they know, and there are so many things that we have over the years. I remember when we started doing factory tours, wood shop tours, invite people into your wood shop. It was like, okay, shake off the sawdust, walk out front, say hello. You got to get down to the basics because take me away from the woodwork and I don't know what I'm doing. So we're not all good at everything. We got to find those things we're really best at and focus on them and get the help we need in other places. So thank you so much. I appreciate your expertise and your time today.
Andy, do you have a question?
Nope, you're on mute.
Muted. You're muted.
Oh,
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
Just follow up with that. That's been a big thing for me for years because there's something that I heard once is everybody has their own genius. And so we have the woodworkers, the artists have their genius of creating. There's the bookkeeping, get it to work better, and that's their genius. Yours, Jim. Chris Lindgren's here. When I end up having to do everything, I'm not doing anything well, including the woodwork. I'm not working efficiently. I'm not getting the work done because I'm spending so much time trying to figure out how to make Instagram work. I spend so much time online, and so that I just found at the same point that you're making already is that I can't do it all. I could do it all, but not well. That's the point.
Yep. All right.
Thank you, Andy. Any other last minute questions, comments? You can always send them along to Jim, to me, to Christine, and we'll make sure they get channeled where they need to go.
Jim, I just want to say thanks so much. There are a few members here, including myself, that are members of the Guild of Vermont Furniture Makers, but I'm glad to see that this is being recorded, and then I will be sharing that with the entire membership of the Guild, which is approximately 30 furniture makers throughout Vermont, mostly small shops, some bigger, but I think this is really valuable info, and I'm sure they will all find it really useful and helpful. So thanks. I took a lot of notes during this time, so I really appreciate all the info.
Cool. And Kathleen, should I send the presentation to you to distribute?
That would be great because we can post that. We can post the recording and the presentation and make sure that David gets everything for the Guild members.
Cool. All right.
Yes. Thank you, Jim.
My pleasure.
And thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you.
Very, very valuable.
Thanks all.
Bye, everybody.
So long.
Thank you.